Welcome to discussion of Chapter 8 of the Iliad by Homer. My name is Kirk Barbera, and I am going chapter by chapter through the Iliad. And we are today going to not only discuss Chapter 8, but we're going to talk about a video game character related to our Greek word of the day. But first, please go to troubadour.studio to look at more of my work on literature. You can also purchase the first ever young adult version of the Iliad for first-time readers. This is a line-by-line translation, but done at a reading level that is actually readable for anybody who reads English. And I also have included a variety of little tools and helpful things to help you get through the Iliad for the first time. This really is the first ever truly great version of the Iliad for first-time readers. Go to troubadour.studio/Iliad to get your copy. You can also get chapter 1 or book 1, if you want to call it that, for free there at that place. Today, we are going to go through chapter 8. Here is a quick recap, if you are joining us today, of what's happened so far in the Iliad. So remember, we start off with a conflict between Achilles and Agamemnon, where Achilles quits, says, I'm no longer going to fight for the Greeks who are at Troy, attacking Troy to get Helen back. After Achilles quits, he begs his mother to go to Zeus and ask Zeus, the king of the gods, to allow for the Greeks to lose because they've been winning for a little while. In the following chapters, we get a duel between Paris and Menelaus. We then get a temporary truce between the Trojans and the Greeks, which is broken by an accidental, so-called accidental arrow shot. Then in chapter 5, we get the Aristeia, or the great moment of the Greek hero Diomedes, who's just slaughtering the Trojans left and right. In chapter 6, Hector, the greatest of all the Trojan warriors, goes back to Troy, begs or asks for the Trojan women to pray on their behalf, which they do. Chapter 7, Hector returns. He proposes a duel with the Greeks to find the winner so that they will then go home if whoever wins. Unfortunately, it's Ajax who answers the call, and they duel to a truce. So then the battle is now going to resume. The last thing we read in chapter 7 is the Greeks build defenses. They're now starting to build a wall in preparation for a potential change that might happen in the battle, which does happen in chapter 8. This chapter 8 is called The Tide of Battle Turns, meaning it has been the Greeks have been pushing back the Trojans. Now the Trojans are going to push the Greeks. Here are the sections in this one. Zeus asserts his power. The battle resumes. Agamemnon's plea and Zeus's omen. The goddess halted, and the Trojans' fires of resolve. So Zeus asserts his power. As we start after the building of these, after we've left the Greek camps and we're starting chapter 7, we have dawn spread her golden robes across the sky, and Zeus, high king of gods, called all gods near. On Olympus' towering peak he stood and spoke while every god around sat still. Listen, gods, and hear what I decree, for what I say will surely come to be. No one among you all may change my mind. Not god nor goddess, do not interfere. So let us end this war the way I chose, and all of you agree, so work may end. But if I see a god defying me, to help the Greeks will face a punishment so fierce and harsh, I'll hurl them into cold and misty lands, down to the deepest pit beneath the earth, lower than even Hades' darkest halls. It's there the strongest gates of iron stand, too far for any god to save them. Zeus has made a decree that you cannot help the warriors down below. Now, what he specifically means, though, although he says both Greeks and Trojans, what he specifically means is you can't help the Greeks. So we will see actually an interesting intervention on the Trojan side, which seems like a contradiction. Now, in this section, we're going to get our word of the day, And many of you may have heard this name before, especially if you're a video game player. In 2005, a video game company, Santa Monica Studios, created a character that goes all the way back to ancient Greek mythology, but is not actually in the Iliad as a character. And the character is named Kratos. Kratos, if you've ever seen this character, is a big, burly, he's often thought of as a Spartan warrior in this video game. And he carries a big, scary axe, and he goes around chopping people up, including big, scary monsters. But in the ancient Greek, Kratos essentially means physical strength, political power, victory, mastery. So it's represented often as sheer force. And that's what we see with Zeus here. Zeus is imposing his Kratos onto all the other Greeks. And it's a kind of tyrannical power. It means in modern English, it can be translated into things like strength, power, might, dominion, authority. All of those can be legitimately Kratos. Physical power, political power, victory, mastery. And we're going to contrast this with other forms of power in the future, as particularly in relationship to Achilles. But for now, we're going to be looking at it in the realm of what Zeus just did, which is this all-consuming power over someone. Now, here's an example of how it's used in ancient Greek after the Iliad. So in the Iliad, the Odyssey, we don't really have a figured person of Kratos, but we do get this a couple of hundred years later in a drama, a play called Prometheus Bound by the playwright in ancient Athens named Aeschylus. In this, you have Aeschylus's Prometheus Bound, which is about the god Prometheus who gave fire to the man, and he is tortured for giving the gift of fire to mankind. In one of the opening scenes, Kratos and his sister Bia, Force, they're servants, so they're personified because you kind of have to in drama, interestingly, more than in literature. You kind of have to personify anything like this because you have to show it to people, right? On a stage. So somebody has to put on a mask and go out on stage. So they put Kratos with his sister Force, Kratos meaning strength and then force, and they're serving Zeus by chaining Prometheus to the rock as punishment for giving fire to humanity. So in the Iliad, it's more conceptual. It's just Kratos is used to represent the power and strength and tyrannical force through strength of arm that is Zeus. Zeus often will say things like, if all the gods came together, I could throw you off here with nothing and, rip all of you apart and things like that. Like he often puts himself in comparison to all of the gods. He's the strongest of all of them. So in book 8 in particular, Kratos is a concept. It means absolute raw dominance, tyranny over gods and men. So when Zeus makes this decree, do not interfere. Zeus is not messing around. The video game Kratos changes a lot of this, obviously. It's a video game. I think it looks like a fun one. I haven't played this one. I want to play it now. But go play it. It seems fun. But it seems like he begins as an enslaved agent of the gods. Then he turns on them after being betrayed, I believe. And throughout the process of the video game, he learns restraint and humanity. But he seems to be a powerful, the strongest, or figuring out who is the strongest by might of arms. And that is kind of one of the game mechanics of Kratos and how you play that character. And then I think there is a lot struggle through that in terms of self-control, which is, it seems to be in this video game, the true heroic journey of the video game. Okay, so that is a simple word of the day, but that's your word of the day is Kratos. It is strength, dominance, and it's what Zeus is doing here at the beginning when he makes this decree. And that is now the word is final, it's law, and we're going to have the consequences of the Greeks starting to lose, because that is the aim of Zeus here. Why? Because Achilles asked for it, and we've in other videos expressed the importance of Achilles asking and why Zeus answers. After Zeus asserts his power, or Zeus asserts his Kratos, we get the battle resumes. That's the next section in the book. Here we get some very good battle sequences, so make sure you get the book so you can read this. I want to read just a quick little section here to give you a little bit of a taste of the way that Greeks viewed life and randomness, which I think is very relevant in a book of war. All morning long, the arrows filled the air, and soldiers fell from both sides, left and right. But when the sun had climbed to midday's height, then Zeus, the father, took his mighty scales. In one, he placed the fate for Trojan men. In one, he placed the fate of Greece's sons. He raised the scales high up with both his hands, and soon the side of Greece sank toward the ground. That day was there to suffer heavy loss, the fate of Troy, now lifted to the sky. Now, there's a lot to be said about the Greek perspective on fate, free will, and things of that nature, because didn't we just hear that Zeus asserted his power? So why does he have to assess fate? Well, you'll often see this in the Iliad and the Odyssey and a lot of the Greek thinking and writers, that they have a really complex web of how all of these things play together, how fate, free will, determinism work together. There are moments which we'll get to where Zeus kind of has to bow to fate. So fate is almost a stronger force, even though Zeus decreed he's the strongest. But fate seems to be a little bit stronger, actually. We'll see this more in a future point, but just take note of this really important strain throughout Greek thinking that affects us to this day. We still have arguments about whether we are fated to our destinies, whether we do have free will, how much choice do we actually have, if any? Are we all just controlled puppets of the things or the gods around us? That is still something we're grappling with in modern times. Later on in this section, the battle resumes. There's two other quick little things I wanted to point out. So later on, as more battles go back and forth, the Trojans and Hector start to realize that they're winning. So that's a good sign. And Hector starts to push his Trojans and hit the allies, the Lycians, the Dardanians, to stand strong, my friends, and fight with all your might. For Zeus has sent us strength and victory. So now when you start seeing signs of victory, you start getting more excited and you push even harder, hopefully making your victory even better. Later, Hera, the wife of Zeus, is challenging Poseidon, the lord of seas, and what might be thought of as one of the three great brothers. So Zeus, the lord of lightning and thunder, you have Poseidon, the lord of seas, and Hades, the lord of the underworld. And they're three brothers, and Zeus is acknowledged as the more powerful of all of them. But they are brothers, and it's sometimes thought maybe one might be stronger than the other at a moment like this. So Hera accuses the earth shaker Poseidon. "Oh, earth shaker, can you stand by and watch? The Greeks, your loyal friends, are falling fast. They've honored you with many gifts and prayers, yet now you lift no hand to aid their cause." And here's Poseidon's response. With anger in his voice, he then replied, "Hera, what words are these you choose to speak? Do you not know the power of Zeus the king? I would not dare to fight him face to face, for he is far beyond our might and strength." So, simple truth about tyrannical power is that it imposes fear even on other powerful allies. So Zeus makes a claim that he could destroy all the gods all at once. We don't know that for sure. Definitely no individual god wants to challenge him. And that's part of how you gain tyrannical power, is that you know that all the people together probably could defeat you, even if you told a story that they couldn't. But individually, they're all too terrified to get together to actually attack you. And that's how fear plays into these tyrannical authoritarian regimes, even to this day. Now, the next section is Agamemnon's plea and Zeus's omen. So Agamemnon, remember, is the leader of the Greek expeditionary forces at Troy, and he is the one leading the Greeks in terms of being the high general of this whole war. And this is one of the beauties of Homer as a creator and a writer, is even though we know right now that Zeus has decreed this, there's still, I think, an element of realism that Homer wants to inject here, which sounds weird in this epic, mythological story. But the realism is that Agamemnon prays to get help from Zeus, And it seems like he's going to get it. It seems like he's getting it, which gives him some bravado and joy. And then he pushes back, and especially with the archer Teucer, who's shooting arrows. But then it happens where Teucer shoots at Hector several times, and it's told by Homer that Apollo knocks the arrow away each time. So they haven't actually made a movement toward really succeeding. This is a temporary reprieve from them getting beaten back. There's a moment where they push back the Greeks, and that's only a moment. The next section is the goddesses halted. Hera and Athena, who are on the sides of the Greeks, are going to go against the decree of Zeus. One of the rationalizations, the arguments, the things that Athena says to kind of convince herself and the queen of gods, Hera, to be on her side, is she quotes or thinks about the moment when she was owed goodness by Zeus because she was asked to intervene when his son, Hercules, or Heracles, as the Greeks called him, was in need of her aid. And here's what she says. He as in Zeus even turned his back when I once saved Heracles, who faced his painful tasks. My father watched his son, his head held high, begging Zeus to help him in his fight. And then my father sent me to his aid to lift the weight of all his mighty tasks. And was there ever thanks for what I did? No. For now he listens to Thetis' plea and honors only proud Achilles' wrath. But soon enough he will return to us. So go, prepare our horses for the fight, and I will don my shining battle gear. We'll charge together toward the Trojan walls and see if Hector dares to show his face. So now they're going to push back. They start intervening in the war against the decree of Zeus. Now, this is a really important part of literature, and why this is such a great story is it's not just about Zeus saying this. We now get in action the enforcement of it, and that's what happens next. So Zeus notices that this has happened. He sends one of the messenger gods, Iris, to go talk to them. And here's what the message to Athena is going to be. Go, Iris. This is Zeus talking to the god messenger, Iris. Go, Iris. Fly and turn them back to me. Tell them to stop or soon they'll meet my wrath. If they continue charging toward the fight, I'll strike them down and cripple both their steeds. I'll throw them from their chariot to the ground and break their bones, so bent with awful pain, they won't return to fight for 10 long years. Then they will know how strong my thunder strikes, and see what happens when they face their king. For Hera, I will not be as severe, for though I tire of her endless complaints, she dares not push me as Athena does. So this is him, Zeus, the god of all the kings and the kings of all the gods. He is putting forth his Kratos, his physical power and dominance. That's how in a warrior military culture, that's how you become the numero uno chieftain, is you're the strongest of the chieftains. If you've watched the TV show or read the books by George R.R. Martin, the Game of Thrones series, then you know Khal Drogo. This is exactly his story in the sense of he's in a culture where the strongest and the best, the greatest warrior, but particularly the strongest in terms of physical dominance, is the one who is in control. Once he loses his strength, then he loses that ability. And there's a really good book to see about the Middle Eastern cultures called The Strong Horse that I recommend to kind of get some insights into this kind of culture, because this kind of culture still exists in some parts of the world. This is the idea that might is right, of course. You've heard that. The last section of chapter 8 is the Trojans' fires of resolve. Throughout the night, the Trojans' camp glows with thousands of fires, symbolizing their unity and readiness for the dawn's renewed assault. Once Zeus stops Athena and Hera from helping the Greeks, they stop fighting at night. So normally fighting does not commence at night because they don't have flashlights and lights and night goggles and things like that. So it'd be pitch black and you're just not going to start striking at people. So generally there's no fighting at night. But they're in their camps. The Trojans and the Greeks are in their camps, and there's some great descriptions of the visuals of the Trojans and all of their lights that are lighting up throughout the night in their campfires. So here it ends. I'm going to read a small little section here. I think this is a rather poetic description of what is being felt and seen by the Trojans. They felt so proud and waited through the night on ridges set for battle come the dawn. Their many fires glowed bright against the dark, and all through night they burned with steady flame. Like stars around the shining silver moon in a still sky when winds have ceased to blow, and every hill and peak and valley clear can be seen from far beneath the heavens wide. Bright light breaks forth, and every star appears, and in that peace the shepherd's heart is glad. So too did shine the 1,000 Trojan fires between the Xanthus river and the ships, bright burning fires that lit the Trojan camps. 1,000 fires burned brightly in the field, and 50 men would sit by each warm flame. Beside their carts the horses stood and ate their share of oats and barley, waiting still until the early dawn to pull the carts. The next chapter is chapter 9, what I believe is one of the greatest chapters in the history of literature, one of the most impactful, important to understand, to get a sense not only of the Iliad, not only of Homer, not only of ancient Greek philosophy, theology, and ideas, and moving into Rome, but in the whole foundation of Western civilization, all in one chapter. So don't miss out. Next time, I'll see you for the embassy to Achilles.